Cold mist hung over Arlington and the tomb of the unknown soldier standing stark against the dawn. A mother stood alone, clutching her son's photo, tears falling like silent prayers. The crowd watched the tomb guard, his steps precise, his face unyielding. But then he stopped. He turned, and in a single forbidden bow, he broke every rule. Whispers rippled through the onlookers. A child gasped. A veteran's hand trembled on his cane. No one knew why he did it, not yet. But what they couldn't see, what only the wind and the marble knew, was that this tomb guard carried a secret from a war-torn past. And this mother held a truth that could change everything. Welcome to the Old Guard Watch. Before we continue this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. If these stories speak to you, hit that subscribe button to support the channel and join us in honoring the values of duty, respect, and compassion. The sun had barely risen over Arlington National Cemetery, casting a pale glow across rows of white headstones, each one a silent sentinel of a life given for country. A thin mist curled through the air, softening the edges of the marble markers as if the earth itself were exhaling memory. It was early autumn, the air crisp with golden leaves drifting across the stone paths, their soft rustle, the only sound in the stillness. At the heart of the cemetery stood the tomb of the unknown soldier, its marble face solemn under a gray sky, a monument to those who never came home, whose names were known only to the ages. Corporal Ethan Caldwell, 27 years old, stood at his post, a tomb guard of the 3rd United States Infantry Regiment. Ethan moved with a precision that seemed almost otherworldly. 21 steps south, turn. 21 steps north. His polished boots struck the stone plaza, each click sharp and steady, like the tick of a metronome. His blue dress uniform was immaculate, the white gloves crisp, the silver bayonet on his M14 rifle catching the faint morning light. To the small crowd gathered beyond the velvet rope, families clutching coffee, veterans in worn jackets, school children with wide eyes, Ethan was more than a soldier. He was a living symbol, a keeper of the flame for those who rested beneath the earth. Beneath his disciplined exterior, Ethan carried a weight no one could see. 3 years ago, in the dusty chaos of Afghanistan, an IED had torn through his unit. His best friend, Private First Class Ryan Carter, had been at his side, laughing about a letter from home just moments before the blast. Ryan didn't make it. Ethan still saw his face in dreams, the easy grin, the freckles across his nose, the way he'd hum old country songs under his breath. Ryan's mother, Ellen, had hugged Ethan at the funeral, her voice breaking as she said, "You were his eyes, Ethan. You saw him to the end." Ethan joined the tomb guard to honor Ryan, to stand for every soldier who never got a proper goodbye. Each step he took felt like a promise, heavy with the past. The plaza was quiet that morning, the crowd smaller than usual. A young couple stood hand in hand, their breath visible in the chilly air. An older man, his VFW cap faded, leaned on a cane, staring at the tomb as if it held answers. Near the rope barrier, a woman stood alone. She was 68, her silver hair tucked under a simple wool scarf, her frame slight but unyielding. Margaret Thompson, Maggie to those who knew her, clutched a wooden picture frame to her chest. Inside was a photo of her son, Sergeant James Thompson, in his Marine dress blues, his smile bright enough to light up the Ohio sky he'd left behind. James had died in Iraq, in the brutal streets of Fallujah 20 years ago. His body was never recovered, lost to the chaos of war. Maggie had no grave to visit, no place to lay flowers, so she came here, to the tomb, as close as she could get to her boy. Maggie's eyes, red-rimmed and weary, fixed on the tomb's marble face. She whispered to the photo, her voice soft, almost lost in the breeze. "James, you should have seen the leaves this year, golden like the ones you used to kick up in the yard." She paused, her fingers tracing the frame. "I know you're not here, but this is the closest I can get. It's like visiting you, sweetheart." Her voice cracked and a tear slipped down her cheek, catching the light. She stood there hour after hour as the crowd shifted around her. Most didn't notice, their eyes on Ethan's steady march or the grandeur of the tomb. But a few saw her, a veteran with a Purple Heart pin, a young woman with a camera, and felt the weight of her grief. Ethan saw her too. His training demanded focus, eyes straight ahead, mind clear. But he couldn't miss her, standing so still, her hands trembling around that frame. He saw the photo, the young Marine's face, and something stirred in him. He thought of Ryan, Ellen, Ryan's mother, the way she'd stood at the memorial service, clutching a folded flag. Maggie's face held the same quiet devastation, the kind that came from losing the heart of your world. Ethan's steps never faltered, but his mind wandered to Ryan, to the promise he'd made to never let his friend's sacrifice fade. 21 steps, pause, turn. He counted, but he saw Maggie's tears. Maggie's journey to Arlington had begun long before that morning. She lived alone in a small house in Dayton, Ohio, where the walls were lined with memories of James. A baseball glove on a shelf, worn from years of catch in the backyard. A guitar in the corner, strings silent since James left for boot camp. He'd been her only child, born when she was already in her 40s, a miracle after years of hoping. James had grown up fast, a boy who loved Neil Young's songs and Sunday pancakes, who joined the Marines after 9/11 because he said, "Mom, someone's got to stand up." Maggie had been proud, terrified, and helpless all at once. When the news came in 2005, delivered by 2 officers at her door, her world shattered. James had saved 3 men in Fallujah, dragging them from a burning vehicle under fire, but a sniper's bullet found him. His body was lost to the chaos of war, and Maggie got a silver star and a flag folded tight like a wound. For 20 years, Maggie had carried that loss. She taught 3rd grade until retirement, smiling for her students while her heart ached. Every November, on the anniversary of James's death, she drove 8 hours to Arlington. The tomb became her sanctuary, a place where she could talk to James, where his sacrifice felt seen. She'd stand there, whispering stories, how she'd baked his favorite apple pie last week, how the neighbor's kid was playing ball like he used to. This year, 2025, marked 20 years. Maggie felt older, frailer, but the need to come was stronger than ever. She wore her best coat, a gray wool one James had bought her, and held his photo like a lifeline. As the morning wore on, the crowd grew. A school group arrived, kids whispering and pointing at Ethan's precise movements. A veteran in a wheelchair saluted the tomb, his hand trembling. Maggie stayed rooted, her scarf fluttering in the wind. She spoke to James again, her voice barely audible. "You'd be 42 now, can you believe that? You'd probably be coaching Little League, teaching some kid to swing a bat." She smiled and sobbed, her shoulder shaking. A young woman nearby, Anna, 22, a history major from Georgetown, noticed Maggie. She was filming the tomb for a class project, but her lens caught Maggie's quiet grief. Anna lowered her phone, feeling like an intruder, but kept recording, sensing something profound. Ethan's shift was nearing its end. The changing of the guard was moments away, a ritual as sacred as the tomb itself. He completed his final circuit, 21 steps, pause, turn. His relief, Private Jenna Brooks approached, her movements mirroring his. The crowd watched hushed as the ceremony unfolded. Rifles exchanged salutes, crisp boots echoing. Ethan stepped back, his role done for now. As he walked toward the memorial amphitheater to debrief, his path took him near the velvet rope near Maggie. He saw her up close. Now the photo of James, the tears staining her scarf. He thought of Ryan's mother, the way she'd looked at him, searching for her son in his eyes. He thought of the tomb of the unknowns it honored, and of the known, like James, who lived in the hearts of those left behind. Ethan slowed. Protocol was clear. Tomb guards did not engage, did not deviate. But something in Maggie's face, the raw, unspoken love, pulled at him. He stopped, just for a moment, and facing her. The crowd still sensing a shift. Maggie looked up, startled, her eyes meeting his. Ethan's gaze fell to the photo of James, the Marine's proud smile. Slowly, deliberately, Ethan bowed his head, deep and reverent, his white-gloved hand steady at his sides. The gesture lasted only seconds, but it carried the weight of 1,000 words. Maggie's breath caught, her hand pressing the frame tighter. Ethan straightened, gave a slight nod, and walked on, his boots echoing in the silence. Maggie stood frozen, tears streaming now. She whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for seeing him." Her voice was soft, meant for James, for Ethan, for the tomb itself. The crowd murmured, some wiping their eyes. Anna, her phone still recording, felt her throat tighten. She posted the video to X later that morning. Her caption, simple: "A tomb guard just bowed to a mother who lost her son. This is what honor looks like." By noon, the video had thousands of views, shared by veterans, family, strangers moved by the moment. Back in the barracks, Ethan sat on his bunk, his uniform hung neatly. A photo of Ryan sat on his locker next to a letter from Ellen, thanking him for staying with her son until the end. Private Jenna Brooks leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed. "You know Reed's going to have your head for that," she said, her voice half teasing, half worried. Captain Thomas Reed, their commander, was a Desert Storm veteran, a man who saw the tomb's rituals as sacred, untouchable. Ethan nodded, staring at Ryan's photo. "I saw her, Jenna. That picture, her son. It was like seeing Ryan's mom. I couldn't just walk by." Jenna sat across from him, her eyes soft. "You think about Afghanistan a lot, don't you?" Ethan's jaw tightened. Every day. Ryan's laugh, the blast, the silence after. That woman, she's carrying the same thing. I had to do something. By evening, Anna's video was everywhere. X, local news, even a segment on CNN. Comments poured in. "This is why we serve." That mother deserved that respect. A Marine who'd served in Iraq wrote, "I lost my brother in Baghdad. That bow was for all of us." A VFW post in Arlington shared the video, their members toasting to Ethan and Maggie. A high school teacher in Ohio had her class watch it. One student writing, "He didn't say a word, but he said everything." Maggie, back at her motel near Arlington, sat on a creaky bed, the TV on low. She held James' photo, her fingers tracing his smile. She'd come to the tomb expecting only to grieve, but Ethan's bow had given her something else, a moment of recognition, a bridge between her pain and the world. She spoke to the photo, her voice steadier now. "James, someone saw you today. Someone cared." The news showed Ethan's bow, blurry but unmistakable. The anchor said, "A tomb guard's silent gesture has sparked a conversation about duty, loss, and compassion." Maggie's heart swelled. For the first time in years, she felt less alone. The next day, Ethan faced Captain Reed in a small office at Fort Myer. Reed's face was stern, his uniform heavy with ribbons. "Corporal Caldwell," he began, "you broke protocol yesterday at 11:20 a.m. You stopped, you engaged. Explain." Ethan stood at attention, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, that woman lost her son, a Marine in Iraq. His body was never found. She was there to honor him. I saw his picture, her grief. I thought of my friend Ryan, his mother. My duty is to the fallen, sir, and to those they left behind. That bow was for her son, for all of them." Reed leaned back, his pen tapping. The tomb is about discipline, Caldwell, not sentiment. You know that. Ethan met his gaze. With respect, sir. Discipline without heart forgets why we're here. That mother deserved to know her son's sacrifice matters. Reed's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of understanding. He'd buried friends in Desert Storm, carried their names. He wrote in his report, "Verbal reprimand issued. Recommend no further action." Maggie returned to Ohio a week later, the drive long but lighter. At home, she hung James' silver star next to his photo, something she hadn't done in years. She felt a shift, like a weight lifting. She started attending VFW meetings, sharing James' story, his courage. Other mothers, widows, veterans, listened, their own stories spilling out. Maggie found purpose, a way to keep James alive. She wrote a letter to Ethan, never sent, tucked in a drawer. "Your bow gave me my son back, just for a moment. Thank you for seeing us." Anna's video hit 1 million views, sparking a movement called Honor the Mothers. Veterans groups pushed for a plaque near the tomb, a tribute to mothers who lost their children to war. A sculptor in Virginia sketched the design, a mother holding a framed photo, head bowed. Ethan, back at his post, marched his 21 steps, his heart carrying Maggie, James, Ryan. He began writing to families of the fallen, simple notes, "Your loved one is remembered." He signed them, "A Tomb Guard." Months later, a new spring dawned at Arlington. Ethan marched his steps, as precise as ever. A veteran stood where Maggie had, holding a photo of his son. Ethan didn't stop, but his eyes lingered. A silent bow. A girl in the crowd, watching with her mother, asked, "Why is he so steady?" Her mother knelt, voice soft. "Because he carries them all, honey. Every soldier, every mother. And when he bows, the world feels it." Ethan heard, his face unchanged, his steps unbroken. Deep inside, he felt the weight of James, of Ryan, of Maggie, a weight heavy as marble, light as a mother's love. He marched on, 21 steps, guarding the past, honoring the living. This is the story of a tomb guard and a grieving mother, of a quiet morning at Arlington, of a photograph and a bow that wove together duty and the human heart. It's a reminder that at the tomb of the unknown soldier, where every step and every pause honors the fallen, sometimes the deepest tribute is a silent gesture that carries a mother's love across the years. So pause today. Think of Maggie, of James, of the countless soldiers whose names rest in silence. Share their story, not just to keep their memory alive, but to remind us that compassion is the truest measure of honor. And if you find yourself at Arlington, stand before the tomb, count the steps and listen. You might hear the heartbeat of a nation, steady and strong, echoing through the mist.